What's up, guys, and welcome to Press A Repeatedly. Justin Tomasello here with Chris Gold.
Hey, everybody.
And we are back to normal episodes, back from the craziness that was E3, the craziness of their E3 recap. And I think I'm having like some sort of PTSD from E3. Maybe we can call it PTSD E3. But I had a dream the other night that I was at E3 backstage at the Microsoft conference, and a giant, there was during the middle of the conference, a giant video for a God of War game for some reason was playing for the Microsoft conference, and I'm like up in the rafters like watching the video, and this guy comes over. This guy that I work with for some reason, I don't know why he was in my dream, but he handed me the microphone and went, "Here." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "You have to talk over the trailer. Come on, go." And I was like, "What?" What? And so I just started talking, and I said, it's the return of Kratos. And this time, he has neither friend nor foe, but with him is his son.
What? That doesn't make any sense. He has neither friend nor foe. Then what does he have?
It just came literally off the top of my head because I had no idea that apparently I was doing the voiceover for this monumental trailer of a game that will never be on a certain platform.
No, you never know. Someday maybe, but my God, Justin, you gotta. This dream was a sign. This was a sign telling you, listen, you're gonna flub it when it comes your time to do this someday. You have to think of something better. So when the time comes, when Phil Spencer points his finger at you and says, "You, Justin Tomasello, you're going to announce to the world that God of War is coming to Xbox," you have to not blow it. You have to stand your ground. You have to think of a better line.
Yeah, so like that happened, and then there was a part where I was like, "This game is, and like I just saw everyone in the audience just like staring at each other and like shrugging because I had no idea what to say. Yeah, it was a pretty nightmarish experience.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. No wonder you were not invited to E3 to speak at the conference.
Yeah,
that's exactly why. He knew. See, Phil knows. He's a smart guy.
he does know. And that's not, of course, what we'll be talking about this week, but what we will be talking about. If you listened last week, you remember that we had mentioned we got an email from Nick about Fallout 76 and his impressions on it. And the game kind of has been like a hot button topic ever since it was first announced. And we decided to kind of turn, Chris, this was your idea and a great idea, to turn a whole episode about basically the announcement, the impressions, and what possibly this game could turn into.
Right, because ordinarily when we get an email from all of our lovely friends and fans out there, we like to read them at the beginning of the show. We talk about them, and then we jump into everything else. But next topic was really, I thought, ripe for discussion. Also, it was a very long email. I actually copy and pasted the email into Word, and it's actually almost the same page length as War and Peace. So, yeah. So I figured rather than reading a whole novel's worth of email at the beginning of the episode, I figured we could save it towards the end, and then we can discuss the email more in depth, because it really does, in all seriousness, provide a lot of great food for thought, a lot of great discussion points, and I feel like we wouldn't be giving the email its just due if we just kind of sorted it at the beginning and said, all right, we'll talk about it, then we'll talk about something else. I felt like it really deserved excuse me. I really felt like it deserved its own segment on the show.
Yeah, it invokes a larger discussion. and we're gonna get that. It's just due later on today. The best part about being back to our normal format is that we've played a bunch of games in the past few weeks, and it's time for us to dive into them. So, Chris, without further ado, what are you playing?
Well, Justin, like you said, I've been playing a lot over the past few weeks. Mostly the games that I've been playing, it's just been a few games that I've been pouring a lot of time into. So the probably the most notable game that I poured time into was the Octopath Traveler demo that came out
me as well.
right at E3.
And if you don't mind, maybe you and I can just kind of talk on this one together since we both played it. I know you said you beat it. I also beat it. So maybe we can both kind of just trade our impressions back and forth.
Yeah, no, I like that idea. So I started out naturally. You start out the game, you have the 8 different characters who each represent 8 different classes and, different job classes that you can choose. And naturally, I gravitated towards the thief, Therion. And yeah, I mean, all the characters, they themselves looked pretty interesting. I saw Primrose, who was the character that I had played back during the original demo, the beta from last year. I didn't want to have to play through her story again. I wanted to experience something new. So I saw Therion, the thief, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna dive in with this guy. And I started playing as him, and he is the classic thief. He's just like very cool. He's like cool and suave, like, yeah, I'm hot shit. He's just a very typical thief character. It's the same characterization. I can't really criticize it too much because it's the same characterization I try to give my own thief character in D&D.
I was just going to mention that. Yeah, he reminded me of the same guy.
Yeah, they really are. So, I mean, you play through Therion's original story, and it's actually a very clever concept how they kind of get you set off on your journey. Because each of the stories has sort of a setup that establishes your backstory, and it also gives you a reason to venture outside of your town and explore the world. And the demo is designed in such a way where all 8 characters sort of encompass this small area of the map. And then once you get all 8 characters together, I'm pretty sure at that point the world map will open way up, and then you can explore even further outside the world. Like, you can explore the rest of the continent, you can explore other continents. In my playthrough, I managed to unlock 3 characters for my final playthrough. Justin, were you able to get...
more than I did.
Yeah, the last one I got literally like right at the deadline. I finished off her story like just at the end. I managed to unlock the thief. I got the huntress, Hanit, I think is her name. Hanit. It's Hanit, maybe. It's H''AANIT.
Yeah, a brutally painful name to try and figure out how to pronounce.
It's a very tough name to figure out how to pronounce, and the language of her and her people is just really cringy, for lack of a better word.
I haven't got to her, so I haven't seen any of that.
So she is a huntress, and she grew up in the forest, in this forest village. And I guess this village grew up from ancient times, and the language is still set in the old-timey ways, because all of the characters speak in a language that always ends in like old-timey-eth like endings, sort of liketh what I'm speakingeth liketh now. And it just
Why don't
sounds...
you just continue to speak the whole podcast like that?
I won't. We'll lose whatever meager subscribers we already have. And God, I just do not want to do that to ourselves. We're hanging on by a thread, folks. Yeah, so no, I'm not going to subject our few loyal listeners out there to those types of shenanigans. But yeah, I'm reading the whole thing, and the one thing that the game has, which I know you'll want to talk about too, is the voice acting. The voice acting is not great. It's just very. It just doesn't sound very believable. Like, you could tell some of the actors are trying, but the dialogue that they have to work with, it just isn't all there. And and the writing choices, like, again, the Huntress in that fake old-timey style that her language is written in, it just comes off as really forced and fake sounding, and it takes you out of the immersion of the actual game.
Man, yeah, I didn't even think about actually hearing their dialect, like, full voice acted. That must have been even worse than just reading it.
Like, not even was it just, it was very slowly read, but everything was just, it just didn't sound right. It didn't come off as normal or natural, and it really did sound like the actors were just reading lines off of the paper.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just, yeah, I was not a fan of the voice work. I'm glad that there is an option to actually turn it off. So,
Yes.
when I get the full game, which I am going to get the full game, overall I was very impressed with what I played from Octopath. I'm going to I'm going to definitely turn that off.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's not the greatest, but it's also not terrible. And I get that some people do prefer voice acting and enjoy it. So in that case, I'm glad it's in there. But for me, the main reason why I didn't like it was that I was playing this game. As soon as you start playing, as soon as you see those pixel-based graphics and feeling that epic music, like, it sucked me back into those classic JRPGs, RPGs, like Super Nintendo era and stuff. And of course, they never had any sort of voice acting. So just hearing it there just really kind of took me. It was like forcibly ripping me out of that element, like that nostalgia that I wanted to be in with this game, and it was kind of making me like not appreciate that. So I got a little worried, when I first started playing it, that I would have to sit through this voice acting that I really just did not want to listen to. But then I found out that you can go into the menu and turn it off. So, that was great. Plus, also very annoying is that only the cutscenes are fully voice acted, but like, gameplay stuff when you're talking to NPCs, it's kind of like a weird partially voice acted thing where, like, if the line of dialogue is, "Of course I will help you," you just hear the character say, "Of course," or like, "Hello," or "Huh?" and "What?" And like every time they talk, that happens, and that was super like irritating. So of course, I had to turn that off.
Yeah, you have to hurry. What's that? Oh no. Can it be?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100% there. The last character I unlocked was actually one of probably of the three characters, my favorite backstory of any of them, the cleric, Ophelia. Yeah, she has a really interesting backstory. I'm not going to get into it, obviously, spoiler reasons, but I really liked her backstory and the relationships that she had established with everyone in her town. I felt like her motivations for doing what she needed to do were very believable. It wasn't very broad or complicated or complex. It was very simple reasons why she wanted to do what she wanted to do, and they made sense. And I just really, really enjoyed her. It was like it's a very endearing, charming story. Hers, like, there's not a whole lot of tragedy. It's not dark or depressing. It's just really nice, and it was just kind of refreshing, just to be in her backstory.
it's funny that you said that because that's actually the character I chose to start off with this demo.
Oh,
I
okay.
Yeah, again going back to D&D, like I kind of like clerics a little bit, and my character is a paladin who has healing powers in D&D, and who also hails from a frost town. And Ophelia, hails from a town like covered in snow and stuff. So I like those similarities there. And she looks like a really interesting character, and she is. The only thing I eventually switched off of her because I felt like her story, even though I was enjoying it, it was kind of moving a little bit slow. And the way the demo works is you only have 3 hours basically to play. So I kind of really wanted to jump into the gameplay and start getting into some battles and stuff. So after about 20 minutes of Ophelia, I switched to the other character that I really wanted to try, Tressa the Merchant. And man, her story got me so hooked to this game. I gotta say, this demo worked probably the best way any developer would ever want a demo to work, because this team at Square, this is the same team that made the Bravely Default games. Both of those games have massive demos that you can play. I think the first one was like 8 hours, and the second one was around 10 hours, I think. And they're both kind of more like prequel quests that kind of build into the actual gameplay if you get it. This one is the first 3 hours of the game, and you can continue your save file when you do pick up the game next month. And playing this demo really helped me go from genuinely interested in Octopath Traveler to this is a must-have, and I cannot wait to get it in July. And especially with I just thought Tressa's story was so cool. I liked her character a lot. Again, I don't want to spoil anything of how the stories work out, but she definitely got into action a little bit faster than Ophelia did. The character I met up with Ulbrich, who is the warrior character, and I played as him in the
Nice.
first demo. Whereas you played as Primrose in the first demo, I played as Ulbrich. And it's kind of cool because it gives you the option to, when you first meet up with one of the 8 characters, you can like watch or hear their story, basically. And how that works is it's you. If you want to, you can play through like their intro story, because every character has an intro story. And I could have skipped that because I did play as him already previously, but I wanted to see if it was any different than it was in the first demo. And it actually wasn't really that different. It was pretty much the same thing. But it was cool to be able to play through that again, and then you get them in your party. And I actually made it to the town where Primrose is from, that like town in the desert. And I
Yes.
saw her with like 5 minutes left in my gameplay time, and I was like, there's no way I'm starting that right now. I'm not going to be able to do it. So, I just kind of wandered around until my time expired. But yeah, I mean,
Well,
I'm super pumped for this game. Like, it's awesome. It's fun. It reminds me so much of classic RPGs. The music is fantastic. The presentation is like lovely. Like the lighting effects on like the water and like the beaches and stuff were kind of like blowing me away.
yeah, it's just that's the thing too. Like, just from the way the game looks, like it's just such an impressive achievement. Like, it's got that side view, like 2D pixel look to it, where everything has depth and the lighting casts shadows, and you see like the little lighting effects, like glowing around, like torches give off a cool glow. It's just such a good looking game. Yeah, there was nothing that I saw in the demo that I played or that really stood out to me as being like, this isn't as good as I thought it would be. Like, if anything, seeing the different characters and finding out their different backstories, like, I already know Primrose's backstory. I can't wait to eventually bring her into the party. All the other characters that you played, they sound really interesting. I want to bring them into the fold. This sounds like a really interesting cast of characters. The one thing that the demo didn't show off, which is just kind of interesting, I don't know what the overarching story of the game is going to be. Like, I know why that character wants to venture into the world. I know why that character wants to venture into the world. But what is going to happen that's going to unite all 8 of them to eventually save the world?
Yeah, that's a good point. I would wager that once you get all 8 together, that's probably when like the actual story of the game starts. Like I'm imagining something terrible happens, and then these 8 people need to work together to like stop the terribleness or whatever.
Right. Yeah. I hope that's what the final enemy is called, the terribleness.
Yeah.
Oh no. Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
no, take cover. The terribleness is attacking. You fools.
Yeah,
I
mean,
hope that's the
it's
voice actor they use for the terribleness.
like Dastardly or whatever from the Crazy Racers cartoon or Wacky Racers.
Almost. Or Skeletor from He-Man.
Oh, yeah.
Nah! Yeah. Curse you, Octopath travelers! You've defeated
the
me
same
for the
character
last
model.
time! It's literally just a cut and paste of Skeletor. Like, they just got... Oh, man, they got to the end of the game like, oh, no! We forgot to design the final boss. Shit. Just throw something in there. We release tomorrow. Oh, God.
Yeah. But yeah, again, the demo's free. Play it. It's a 3-hour chunk of the game. You get a real good feel of the game. You'll definitely decide after you're done whether you want it or not when it comes out in July. Highly recommend checking that one out.
Absolutely. The other game that I poured a lot of time into. Now, this is kind of surprising because, Justin, you know how I ordinarily feel about mobile games. I'm not all that big into the mobile genre, but I was perusing the eShop, and I noticed this one game that was on sale for like $3, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I might pick that up. Then I decided to look online and see, what do people think of it? And it said, oh, this game is also on mobile. And I was curious. I looked it up on my Google Play Store, and it was only selling for 99 cents on Google Play.
Score.
So I was like, all right, I'm picking this up for my phone. And that game is Hexalogic.
Not heard of that.
Hexalogic, it's a game that's very similar. It's actually inspired by and based off of Sudoku puzzles. Those puzzle boxes where you have to line up like 9 numbers vertically, horizontally, etc. Instead of that, though, you have hexagons. And each of these hexagons, like, they're arranged in these different patterns as they're plugged together. And you can put anywhere up to 1, 2, or 3 dots in the middle of these hexagons. The trick, though, is at the end of certain hexagons, like, let's say you have one hexagon and one side of it has a little arrow pointing out that says 4. Then that means all of the hexagons that are lined up, so that, like, if you were to draw a straight line from the end of one hexagon all the way through the other ones to the end of that arrow, all those dots have to add up to 4. But then, going the other way, you have a different row of hexagons set up, and at the end of that line of hexagons is, say, 5. And you have to try to put in the right number of dots that add up that row to 5, but you also have to make sure that the other row still adds up to 4. So there might be certain combinations, like you could put 2 in one hexagon, but it might screw up the addition for a different row. So you have to try to figure out, okay, which numbers do I need to put into different hexagons to make sure that the rows add up correctly. And then as you progress through the game, there are different challenges that are put into place, like certain hexagons will be linked with other ones, so that if you put 2 in this one, it automatically puts 2 in the other one. If you put 3 in this one, it puts 3 in the other one. So by changing this one, you're also changing combination in a completely different area. And then there's other challenges where there's a hexagon that has just a fixed amount of dots in it, like it might have 6 or 7 dots, and you have to try to work around this one hexagon because you can't change the different numbers that are inside it. You have to work with it. So it was pretty challenging and really really addictive. I'm a big fan of Sudoku puzzles. Like whenever I see one, I always want to just sit down and try to bang them out. I've always just loved number puzzles like them, and so I see something like Hexalogic, and that just grabbed me. I was like, oh man, like I started playing it and literally I just couldn't put it down for like an hour or so. Eventually I looked at the clock and I was like, oh crap, I gotta get to bed. It's late. But yeah, it was super addictive. If you're a fan of puzzle games like that, especially ones that involve different combinations of numbers and adding them together, it's pretty cool. I realize that it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I don't think I did a very good job explaining what exactly the game is. It's one of those types of games where if you look it up online, you'll kind of get a better sense of how the game works. But it's really cool, and considering it's only 99 cents on Android and I'm sure iOS, it's really really good value, I think.
Yeah, no, you sold me. I mean, a logic game with hexagons, like I'm totally into that. I really like logic games. I like how kind of meditative they are almost, and I also like that gratification that you feel when you like beat a level. I think it's like such a rewarding experience, you know. And
yeah,
logic game on a mobile device makes so much sense to me because it essentially like, you know, normally if you're doing one, if you have one of those like Sudoku books or something, you know, you're just kind of doing one in the car anyway or something, like not while you're driving hopefully, but if you're a passenger on like the train or something, you know, if you're killing time on a plane, like you have one of these books. So having it, you know, a logic game on a mobile just makes so much sense. I was a big fan, still am a big fan of the Picross games for 3DS. You know, they're great logic games that are a lot of fun and, you know, have that same kind of effect of like, you know, rewarding experience, and can get really challenging too. Like I definitely never beat any of those games because I would go through like the easy stages and then, you know, work my way through the middle stages, and then the hard stages just kick my butt. So but yeah, I mean, they're a lot of fun. So that sounds great. I gotta check that out.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think you would really enjoy it. That's actually going to do it for me. So, Justin, I'm going to throw it now to you. What are you playing?
All right. So Octopath we talked about. You know, that was a lot of my week. I don't think I mentioned this on the podcast because it's been a couple of weeks, but I finally beat God of War. Not last week, but the week before, I think.
Oh, wonder of wonder, miracle of miracles.
Yes.
It finally happened.
World's slowest gamer and most procrastinating gamer of the world has finally beaten the game. Yeah, I have been putting it off. I can't give you a reason why because I don't even really know why. But I guess I have gaming ADD or whatever where I kind of hop around. I started playing Zelda again and was doing some side quests in that. And you know, and I was telling people that they were like, "Well, did you beat God of War yet?" And I was like, "Well, no." And they would rightfully yell at me for not beating God of War.
Yeah.
And so finally, I was like, you know what? Like, what am I doing? I love this game. Why is it just sitting there unbeaten? Like, just sit down and beat it. And so that's what I did. And you know, I think you had talked about the ending a little bit before a couple episodes ago and how it was it's kind of open. It's kind of it's just not really maybe what you would expect for the game to end or how the game to end. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil anything here, but I do agree with that statement. But I also enjoyed it. I kind of like how it wrapped up, especially like the final scene. You find out some pretty big reveals at the end, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think it's absolutely going to lead into another game, and especially with how well this one sold. If the same team is working on a sequel, I will 100% buy that day one because I did enjoy this game so much. It was just a very nice moment at the end too when you finally get to the top of the mountain. Like it just feels like such a emotional experience, and I love seeing that in games.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like what we love about them so much. So yeah, thrilled to have beaten that. And if you're listening and you haven't tried this game out yet, I highly recommend it. Of course, it's a great adventure game with a really great story. It's beautiful, great combat, good music. Like it's just a really great experience. And I think all in all, if you just kind of mainline it, it's only around 20 hours, which isn't, it's not too demanding. I think it's a great amount of time for the game. And there's plenty of side quest stuff that I still have yet to do. All the Valkyrie locations open up once you beat the game. They kind of tell you where all them are. So if you want to go torture yourself, you can go find them all and try to fight them.
Do you try any of the Valkyrie fights?
I fought one, and it took me about 6 or 7 tries, but I did finally defeat her, and that was a crazy fight. And I was talking to somebody about it who said, yeah, that's like the easiest one, and the next one is absolutely brutal. And I was like, all right, I probably won't be trying that anytime soon.
I've beaten 4 of those Valkyries.
Nice.
Yeah, those things are brutal. Like, especially one of them. Like, you discover as you progress through the Valkyries that they have this this one move, which I call the Valhalla move, and they literally will just jump into the air as they're screaming Valhalla, and then they will jump into the air, and then they will immediately land down on they will stomp down on you, and then they will just start stomping the hell out of your neck, and literally your health just goes like down by a third, down by a third, down by a third, every single time they stomp. And it's one of those things you have to mash the circle button to get them to stop. So, like, if you're at full health and they land that move on you, that'll whittle your health down to nothing like that. And
Ugh.
the window to dodge out of it is very small. Like, literally, I've had times where I've seen them jump into the air. I thought they were just going to fly, but then they jump, and then I hear that, and then they're landing on my neck already, and they're like, ow, howla, and they're stomping and stomping. I'm like, oh, come on.
That's crap.
And the worst part is, Justin, if you have the resurrection stones, it will not help you at all when they land that move, because when they land the killing move that whittles your health down to nothing, they will keep their foot on your neck, and then they'll twist, and then they'll twist one more time, and then they'll give kind of like a kick to kick you away from their foot. That time that they use up to twist and then kick counts towards that time that you could be resurrected. I've had times where literally I've been mashing the resurrect button as soon as I died from that move. Atreus runs up to me, the screen starts fading to black, he puts the stone on me, carves it, stabs it, and just as Kratos goes, the screen goes black, and I die. Like, literally, it's that, like, you cannot use the resurrection stones if they kill you with that move. You can't. You just can't. So, yeah, I hate that move to death. Like, there have been times I've been close to killing the Valkyries, and then they whip out that oh, right, I have a win move, and they just, press button to win, and they do. And I'm like, oh, God damn it. Yeah, there have been many times where
not for me.
Many a time where I threw my controller into my couch in frustration.
Yeah. speaking of frustrating, that actually leads into the next game that I wanted to talk about. I picked up the surprised announcement of moving the release date up of the Octopath. I keep getting my octopuses confused. Octo expansion for Splatoon 2 was supposed to come out in July. They bumped it up. It came out last week during E3. I was really excited for this game because of the way they showed it in the trailer. They had a direct back in March where they first unveiled it, and they showed more of it during the E3 presentation, in the Treehouse presentation. And
Right.
it looked like a really cool side story thing that focused on the Octoling character and how you kind of like wake up, you don't remember your name, you don't know where you are, you're in this underground like subway system, and you're trying to figure out a way to get out. And they said it's 80 levels, and I was like, oh wow, this sounds really cool. Like this is a single player campaign, that has like a cool story and stuff. And so that's what I was expecting. And I gotta say, it really kind of disappointed me because it's not exactly what it is. Yeah, there is this cool story of you're an Octoling and you're trying to figure out how to get out. But like, as soon as the actual gameplay starts, how it works is there are 80 stages, and they are broken up into subway stops. Like each subway stop is a stage, but the stages aren't like linked in any way story wise. All they are like these weird trials. Like most of them are time trials where you're timed. And Chris, you know how much I hate being timed in games. A lot of it is these really brutally hard challenges of like using guns that maybe I don't really like that much. I'm not too familiar with. And being outnumbered. Sometimes you are fighting actual other like evil Octolings that are like, they are no joke. Like they will snipe you out in a second and like kill you. And there was one level where you're timed, and you have like this rocket fish gun thing. I think it's one of the multiplayer modes, but you have this rocket fish gun, and you have to get it to their base and like put it in there, and that's how you win. But it's 4 against 1 when there is 4 evil Octolings like around their base, just waiting to kill you, and you have this giant, rocket fish thing that slows you down, and it takes an incredibly long time to fire, even though it is really powerful. But you have to like slowly aim and like try and hit them. And if you miss or like don't hit them, they will kill you instantly because this is like really intelligent AI. It's like you're playing almost with people in a regular multiplayer game. And man, I kept dying like so much, and I was getting so frustrated. Like I just couldn't believe it. And I was like, all right, I'll just go on and try a different level. And how the level system works is you are given these like subway credits, and you need to spend a certain amount of credits to enter like a subway station like level, like a trial they call it. And if you pass the trial, you make like, for example, it costs 100 credits to take the trial. If you pass the trial, you win 600 credits. So like, your credit count goes up. The thing is, a lot of these trials, like, I mean, even when I first started, I was like, oh, these are kind of tough. I got maybe like 10 trials in. I'm at a point where like all 4 directions I can go, I can't beat them. They are so hard, and I keep dying and dying and dying, and I'm wasting all my credits. And if you run out of credits, you have to go back to trials that you've already completed, play them again to win more credits, so you can go and try and beat these higher level challenges. And of course, the higher level challenges, they give you a lot more if you win, but they also cost a lot more to enter. So whenever you die, instead of losing 100 credits, I'm losing like 500 credits per trial. And, it's not just the difficulty that bothers me. What bothers me is that Nintendo is they had this weird outlook on DLC where it's not, like, I said the same thing earlier in the podcast about the Breath of the Wild DLC, where I was expecting this sort of like extra story stuff, and it's not that. all they're doing is taking assets from the game and kind of reconfiguring them into these weird modes that just don't really add any sort of like single player kind of story related experience. It's just kind of like, oh, here's this weird challenging mode that maybe you can do, try it out. It'll like possibly be fun for you or not. And, it's just way more frustrating than fun, and kind of really disappointing because I was actually looking forward to that, hoping, we get like a really good single player experience from it, because the single player in the original Splatoon and Splatoon 2, they're great. I think they're really paced really well. They got kind of, again, they don't really have that great of a story, but the levels kind of make sense the way you progress through them and stuff. And I just don't like how the Octo expansion is just like these weird assets of the game presented in a weird way that just, basically is like kind of grindy, brutal stuff that I don't even really want to do. I don't have fun playing. So, yeah, in that sense, it's kind of a bummer.
That's a shame. I wanted to give that a try myself, but I mean, I remember like when we played Splatoon 2 back when it first came out last year. Like that was a really good time for when we did try playing it. They had a lot of the bad server issues at the time. I'm sure those issues have been fixed at this point. They must have been. And so I kind of wanted to jump back in and give the Octo expansion a try, but it doesn't sound like it's really all that great. It doesn't sound like it would be really that fun. Yeah, that's kind of disappointing to hear, honestly. I did enjoy, though, you shared this on Twitter when you went into the weapon shop for the first time after being away from the game for so long. And Sheldon felt the need to tell you about every single solitary weapon that came out in the time that you had been away.
Yeah, so when you record a video for the Switch, it only lets you record 30 seconds. So it was a full 30 seconds of just him rambling. The entire thing was probably well over 2 minutes. I didn't get the idea to start recording until like towards the end of it, because I could not believe how long it was taking for him to go through every single game or gun that was released since the last time I played the game, which granted was a long time ago. So yeah, thank God they added that mode where you can speed up and make him talk fast. If that wasn't there, that probably would have taken me like at least a half an hour to get through all of that. It was insane. But it's funny you say that though, because the good thing that came out of getting the Octo expansion was that it made me kind of fall in love with Splatoon again and want to play it again. Like, I went back and played some of the single-player campaign because I haven't beaten that yet, and I remembered how much fun that was. I went back into multiplayer, of course, to try out some battles. It had been a long time since I played, and they added a lot of new features. They added the ability to change your weapons in between games now, so you don't have to leave the actual server, which, it's ridiculous. They should have had that forever, but it is there now, and it's super nice to be able to do that. And, there's a ton of new levels. There's actually a Splatfest this weekend. It is, do you like your orange juice with pulp or without pulp?
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. I mean, hey, I'm down to pick up Splatoon 2 again. I'll splat with you. I will splat against you if need be. Yeah, but just name the time and place. And also, Team No Pulp.
I am also Team No Pulp, because who the hell wants to drink orange juice with floaters that could possibly be hair or crumbs or some other weird texture in it? It's just very strange.
I mean, it's probably just orange juice. It's probably just orange pulp. I don't know if it's hair or like sand or anything like that.
It's not, but it just feels like there's something in my drink, and I don't want that. I want the nice, smooth beverage.
Yeah, that's one of the big reasons why whenever I'm out at I'm out at diners or whatever, like I'm always hesitant to get the orange juice, because the orange juice always has a little bit of pulp in it. And like I'll deal with it. I'll be like, I don't want to be rude, but Uh, yeah. If given the choice, I would prefer my orange juice not to have any pulp in it. I would
Yes.
absolutely splat for the side of pulp free. Now
Yeah.
that's actually interesting because I remember when they had the Splatfest for ketchup versus mayo. They had the ink for the Splatfest. Like if you were Team Ketchup, it was ketchup colored, and if you had it for mayo, it was mayo colored. For orange juice, pulp versus pulp free, what's the color difference between them? I'm sure one is going to be that yellow orange, but what's the other color going to be? I mean, it's not like
Yeah.
pulp free orange juice is purple or anything. If it were, that would freak the hell out of me.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good question. I wonder what they do when it's Splatfest that doesn't really revolve around color, like, you know, spring versus summer or something like that. I mean, I guess we'll have to
Oh,
log on and find out.
yeah, that's the only way to find out.
Yep.
All right.
So
Anything else?
there you go. You have Press A Repeatedly's official stance on orange juice. And with that, that is the end of what I was playing this week, and which will bring us right into the indie arcade.
Indie arcade.
Oh man, it's been so long I forget the name of the game that I gave you.
Well, if you forget, like my buddy, my co-host here, the game that Justin gave me to play for my indie arcade was Tropia.
That's right.
So, Chris, take it away. Thank you, Chris. So, Tropia. Tropia is a game that is obviously very heavily inspired and influenced by the 8-bit NES RPGs that came out on the system long, long ago, similar to something like Final Fantasy or the original Dragon Warrior, etc., etc. You start out the game as soon as you boot the game up. You can assign you can map your controls however you want. The game does not have any preset mapped controls saying, "Oh, you have to do this. This does this, this does that." No, as soon as you start up, you can have the directional buttons be any buttons at all on your keyboard. Just it literally like, oh, to move up, press any key. I could hit P, and then to move left, I could put L, and then move down O, and then move to the right P. So I could have plop be my move set there. I don't, but I could. And then and you can also set like the action buttons and move back. You choose the menu, so you can completely map the controls. And then you create the names for the characters that you're going to be playing in your party. Now, you have 4 different characters. You have the wizard, you have a knight, you have a fighter, and you have a rogue, like a hunter. They have a bow and arrow. And for those characters, the wizard, of course, was me. I named him Chris. Justin, you were the knight.
Nice.
The fighter kind of had like a bald head, and he looked really jacked, so I made him Zool. And for the hunter, the hunter looked like she was a girl character, so I made that Elena.
Perfect.
So the party was me, you, Zool, and Elena. And it's funny, like, as soon as you start off, you are in the king's court, and the king is talking to you, saying, "Oh, Wizard Chris, I have summoned you here because the evil Remlin has captured the princess, and I need you to save her. In order to save her and defeat this evil demon, you also need to travel the world. You need to collect 5 temple keys, which are going to open the gate to the Chaos Temple. And the Chaos Temple being opened is the only way to defeat Remlin and save the princess." So I was like, okay, cool, And the king says, all right, Wizard Chris, go on your journey. Before you go, though, I'm sending my second most trusted knight, Justin, to accompany you on this journey. I was like, okay, my second most trusted. All right, yeah. Beggars can't be choosers, but all right.
Sounds about right.
So yeah, so I you can roam around the I roam around the courtyard and I'm talking to everybody and everyone gives you like different advice like, "Oh, hey, explore everywhere, you might want to explore the castle before leaving. There's treasure." And this one knight who was blocking the door, I talked to him and he's like, "Oh, before you leave, you have to talk to Justin. He's the pink knight up in the corner up there." And so I go up and, there you are, you're wearing pink armor. And you're like, "All right, I will accompany you on your journey, good sir. Let us save the day." And, Justin joins the party. And I'm like, "All right, cool."
My trademark pink colors.
So I go to talk to the knight who told me to talk to you, and he's like, "No, no, no. I don't want to talk to, I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to Justin. There's certain characters in the world where you're going to have to choose different characters to speak to them. Like, different characters have different abilities, and the overworld characters will react to them differently. So you have a button to swap between which character is actually showing at any one point.
That's cool.
I hit the button to switch over to you, and as soon as I do, hearts just start pouring out of this guy. Like, I mean, he is enthralled by you. Like, just the sight of you. Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, Justin, there you are. How could I mistake you? When you've got those dashing good looks and your irresistible charm."
This game sounds pretty accurate.
Yeah, and I'm like, all right, you smart ass game, whatever. So then he's like, of course you may proceed. And then he gets out of the way, and then I can leave the room. And as I'm exploring the world, there are these little circles that you come across in different areas. Like, there was one right in the castle. It's a save point. These are areas that will not only heal you completely, but you can also save your game. You can save your game either in the overworld or at these save points. So I save at the save point and I traverse the world. Everything is all hunky-dory. And as I'm traveling to the first village, which is where I found Zool, I'm traveling to the village and I see a forest off to the side. Okay, let me explore that village. I'm sure there's going to be things for me to fight in there. So I wander around the village, and sure enough, boom, I get a random encounter. Now, the combat in the game, you've got the main enemy in the middle of the screen, and he's facing you, the player. And in the foreground, you have your party members. They're facing the monsters, so their backs are to you, and they're fighting the monster. And you go through and you choose what action each of your characters is going to perform against the enemy. So I'm Chris, and I can choose either to attack or I have skills, which are my my spells. So I can cast fire initially. So I cast fire, then it immediately goes to you. Like, I don't just cast fire and then it moves over to you. Like, it stores up all these moves to use them all at the end.
Okay.
So I tell the game I want to use fire. And then it jumps over to you, and because you're the big, powerful knight with the dashing good looks, I say you're going to attack. So as soon as I say attack, it then says, like, "Oh, Justin attacks." But then nothing happens. And I'm like, wait, what's going on? So then I hit my action button, and it advances so that you attack, and it's like, oh, the monster took like 20 points of damage. and it just says that, then I hit the action button again, and then it advances. Chris cast fire. Hit the action button. The fire does, so many points of damage. I hit the button again. The monster is defeated. You are victorious. And then I have to hit the action button again to toggle through all the you got 4 gold, you got so much experience points, etc., etc. So the combat in the game, you have to constantly hit the action button over and over again to progress through the actual combat stage. I gotta be honest, I was a little disappointed with that. It's very tedious having to hit that button over and over again, literally just to advance the dialogue along.
That might have been intentional, because I remember when I played Earthbound Beginnings, that was an NES style RPG, and I remember it was the same way. You had to keep pressing the button for every little thing that happened. And I'm pretty sure the early Final Fantasies and Dragon Quest were like that too, but I actually can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, that might have been an intentional move, as annoying as it is.
Right. I can understand it being annoying. I can understand it being an homage to how they did things in the old style games. But then you get to the points, Justin, where you have multiple enemies that you're fighting on screen. Now, I can choose everybody attacks the monster on the left. Well, then everyone attacks the monster on the left dies, but then the people who still have moves left, they start attacking the monster on the right. So they automatically shift their focus to the next monster. Now, I know for a fact that in the original RPGs, especially Final Fantasy, there would be times where you would say, attack this one monster. And if that monster died, your characters would still attack that empty space, but there would be nothing there.
Yep.
So if they can make that quality of life improvement where you can still attack different enemies, I don't feel like it would be that big a stretch to have it so that the moves can advance you did this damage, and you see the damage, and then it automatically tells you, the monster got hurt, and then now it's your turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the combat was a little annoying and a little frustrating in that respect. So eventually I come along, I found Zool and Elena very quickly. Zool was hanging out in a bar. And yeah,
also accurate.
It's very appropriate. Very accurate. And he's just you guys are on an adventure. You're going to need my help. I'm, tough and strong. So Zool joins the party. And Zool, whenever his character is active, he can move big boulders out of the way. So this cave I needed to get through to advance to the next area of the world was blocked by a boulder. I had to find Zool to move that boulder out of the way. And so I'm traversing this cave, which is kind of like a dungeon. It is a dungeon, because it had the final boss at the end of it, now I'm thinking. And, Justin, I know this is a throwback to the old school RPGs too, but the random encounter rate was just ridiculous. Step, 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 fight. Step, 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 fight. Step, 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 fight. Step, 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 fight. And it's oh god, every time I sneeze, I'm in the middle of a fight. And the fights themselves aren't really difficult. At the very early going, at very early levels, there were times where I needed to use potions to keep everybody alive. But there comes a point where the fights become literally, you hit one guy, they die, you hit another guy, they die. Just real quick. So the fights become more of a waste of time than anything else.
Yeah.
But the nice thing, though, is as you level up, your stats are replenished. So if you're really close to death, but then you level up, then you're automatically healed 100%.
Oh yeah, Octopath does that too. I forgot to mention that, but that's pretty great. I love when RPGs do that.
Yeah, same. It really really makes it it kind of lessens the challenge a little bit. I mean, if you're really hardcore about the RPG experience, you might be turned off by that mechanic. I don't mind it, so I'm not going to raise any complaints about that. But it's funny because as I'm traversing the cave, I see Elena's character just kind of hanging off in the corner. And so I'm like, oh, there's Elena. And I walk up to her, and it's just literally dot, dot, dot. And then Elena joins the party. And it's just like, yeah, she's like the quiet, deadly type, it turns out.
Ah, okay. That's pretty awesome.
But yeah, I needed to find her because there was a locked door in the cave. And when you try to interact with the door, it tells you, oh, you need somebody who can pick locks to get through this door. So when you find Elena, you get Elena, you select her, so she's the one roaming around the overworld, and then she can pick the locks for you. And I covered despite the fact that I was hitting random encounters every which way, I covered that entire cave. I found all sorts of equipment. There was all sorts of great equipment for you, by the way. There was like broadswords and like horned helms and like really powerful armor. Like you were a tank. You were well equipped by the end of that dungeon.
I'm glad to see that I was represented fairly.
Yeah, you were represented very, very well. I feel like this is a game that probably you would have appreciated more since this game was clearly in love with you so much. But yeah, then I got to the end, and there was a troll at the end of the cave that I had to defeat, and I did. It was a little tricky. Zool died at one point, but luckily I had a healing item that brought him back to life, and we all managed to get out of there all right. And I gotta say, like, the game is, it's a lot of fun. Like, it really hits all the nostalgia buttons. The music in the game, it's really, really cleverly arranged. I love how it's orchestrated. It's the classic MIDI-style track where everything is very 8-bit. I know there's a lot of people today who'd probably be like, oh, like, I can't stand that type of sound, like it's too old school. So you may hate it or you may love it. I loved it personally. I thought the tracks are really really cool. The cave music, the dungeon music could get a little repetitive after a while, but ultimately I thought the music was really good. I loved the characters, the writing in the game. Like this is definitely a game that's kind of serious, but it doesn't take itself really seriously. It just knows that, hey, you're here to have fun, just roll with it. So I really, really enjoyed Tropia. I think if you're the type of person who either misses those old school type of RPGs or you want to experience what those old school RPGs were really like back in the NES days, then Tropia would be a great title to pick up.
Yeah, definitely. As often as when I give you an indie arcade game that I think looks really cool, I really want to play it. And I'm glad that you liked this game a lot because I was worried it might like look cool on the outside, but be kind of just like a real like chore to play. But it sounds like if you know what you're getting into of a real classic style RPG. That you're gonna have a good time, and it sounds really charming and cool. So I totally want to check that out too, and I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Justin. So now I turn it back to you, and since you had given me a pretty fun game to play last time, I decided I'm gonna give you a fun game this time to play.
I still
Not
don't
just
trust
a fun
you.
game, but I understand completely, and no, neither should you. But this time, you're in the clear because, as you know, Justin, this time of the year, as we are recording this, it is the Steam Summer Sale. So there are a lot of games that are on sale right now for Steam that you can pick up for a really, really good price.
Absolutely.
And one of the games that was very highly touted on 2016 Game of the Year lists is this particular indie title that is now available for 75% off, Justin.
Whoa.
You can pick it up for $5. 5 buckaroos.
Whoa.
And this is, yeah, and this is a game that I had always wanted to give a try. I had always wanted to see what this was about. But, I've got this opportunity, so now I'm going to force you to do this in my stead. Justin, your indie arcade game for this week is Firewatch.
Oh, nice. Yes. I'm so thankful of that because I also was looking at the Steam Summer Sale. Of course, we have a few PSAs here on the podcast, and of course, this is a huge one. The Steam Summer Sale, as Chris said, is going on from June 21st all the way till July 5th. So that's about 2 weeks of awesome savings. So definitely, if you're a PC gamer, check that out. They have lots of cool ways to filter. Like you can even list games under $10 or under $5 if you want. So check that out. And yes, I'm so thankful for that because I did see that on sale, and I thought, should I get that? And I'm like, I'll put it on my back burner to think about. And now I gotta get it. And
now you gotta get it. Yeah.
I've never played it.
Firewatch,
I've heard great things. My brother played it and loved it, and I always told myself that I would just kind of grab it one day and roll through it. And now I have no excuse. In fact, I'm being forced to do so, and I gladly accept this challenge. And awesome pick, man. Thank you for that. Yeah, I don't know what I did to deserve
no problem.
such a gift.
Yeah, no, you absolutely do not deserve this gift, but I felt like I would be generous this week. For anyone out there who does not know, Firewatch is a single-player, first-person mystery set in the Wyoming wilderness, where your only emotional lifeline is the person on the other end of a handheld radio. This game was developed and published by Campo Santo. They're now actually a part of Valve, I believe. So that's cool. A lot of the team involved in Campo Santo. If you ever listen to, Lord have mercy, what is the name of that? Idle Thumbs.
Yes.
Idle Thumbs podcast.
That's right.
Duh. Yeah, how could I forget Idle Thumbs? If you ever listen to Idle Thumbs, a lot of their dev team is involved in Campo Santo, and they have their fingers all over Firewatch. So, yeah.
Yep, definitely.
Justin, I can't wait for you to play it. Probably as soon as you're done playing it, I'm going to play it myself.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
That's great. I'm looking forward to it. And, we're totally going to gotta take advantage of the Steam Summer Sale during the next couple indie arcades. So that's great.
Yeah, gotta jump on that.
All right, Chris, what do you say we take a quick break, and when we come back, we will talk all about a discussion on Fallout 76.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome back to Press A Repeatedly. Justin Thomaso here with Chris Gold. And Chris, we got a big email last week from Nick, friend of the show and contributor, and he had some very interesting, thought-provoking ideas on the announcement of Fallout 76 a few weeks ago at E3. And well, what do you say we just read it? We'll start off with reading the email, and then we'll kind of just take it from there.
Emails.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, anyone who knows Nick that is aware that he is as opinionated as he is handsome, and he is incredibly handsome. So,
Deviously.
devilishly handsome. Ah, that man. But yeah, he sent us this really interesting email. It's going to take a little bit for me to read the whole thing out to you, but here it goes. This one comes to us again from good friend Nick. Well, hello there, PAR gents. I'm sitting here on my computer writing down some thoughts regarding Bethesda's E3 conference that I need to get out before Sony and Nintendo inevitably destroy my attention span, and I want to share them with you. First, Elder Scrolls Blades looks awesome. You can all fight me over this. Bring it on, you cowards. And thank God Todd Howard shares my belief in portrait mode mobile gaming. Second, that Andrew W.K. gentleman sure does enjoy partying. Now for the part that I really want to talk about. Fallout 76, or more specifically, the direction that the Fallout universe seems to be taking. For starters, let me say that the game looks interesting. As a former West Virginian for 4 years during my graduate education, I particularly love the chosen setting. I almost cried when I saw the Greenbrier in the trailers as Take Me Home Country Roads played in the background. The fact that the real Greenbrier has actual, honest-to-God vaults beneath it to protect the president from actual nuclear attacks makes it even more intriguing, and traipsing about with your buddies fighting Deathclaws seems like a rompin' good time. Leaving that aside, here's my main problem. I feel that the Fallout series is generally heading in a poor narrative direction. Short story time. I knew nothing about Fallout until I saw trailers for Fallout 3. Every article I read, every trailer I watched, terrified me to my core in the way that horror sci-fi often does, by imagining a world where the worst possible nightmare scenario for humanity has occurred, in this case, total nuclear war. Despite the fact that I was deeply unsettled by this, I couldn't help but grow more and more interested in experiencing this world. I was morbidly fascinated, and Fallout 3 presented that world to me. It was a world of sadness and horror. The sky was gray and foreboding, the water was green and eerily luminescent, the earth brown and lifeless. The people were suffering and desperately trying to maintain the few threads of civilization they could cling to. There were monsters, of course, both the monstrosity of man trying to survive and, in some cases, capitalize on the abject suffering of their fellow man, as well as the literal monsters, the crawling, powerful beasts that lurked in the shadows. It was raw, it was horrific, and it was endlessly fascinating. Despite my love of Fallout 3, I think the series truly hit its high point with Fallout New Vegas, developed by Obsidian. This game further refined the post-apocalypse by creating a truly lived-in world, populated by people who have lived for years through the harshness of civilization's collapse. As the player, I learned how these people organized themselves, how they attempted to survive, how they tried to make a living. My character, the courier, however, doesn't care about this. He's not a hero. He braves the Mojave Desert in search of revenge, and that's it. Here's where I might start to get a bit controversial. I honestly feel that Fallout 4, released 2 years ago, was a step back for a few reasons. In Fallout New Vegas, and to a lesser extent Fallout 3, the world feels lived in. Shit has been bad for a long time since before you even put foot in that world. The people are weary, but they aren't looking for a hero. They've moved past any hope of civilization reasserting itself. Those that do try to hold on, namely the Brotherhood and the Enclave, do so from a place of ignorance. In Fallout 4, the tone is decidedly different. The chosen setting, Boston, plays off of revolutionary and patriotic themes, and incorporating these themes into the game results in a more hopeful world. The people in this world are looking for the people in this world are looking for a hero, and the four main factions you can join, the Brotherhood, the Minutemen, the Railroad, and the Institute, are all trying to be the ones that do the saving in their own way. The game literally ends with you picking a side to support in their goal of saving Boston. This even manifests itself in the world design. The sky is blue, there are patches of foliage and shade, and, most egregiously, you can build yourself a nice little cozy base to call home, making your little corner of the wasteland all the more comfortable. This is troubling, though, because it distracts from the original somber setting that made the first couple of games so goddamn interesting. Now, that horrifying world takes a back seat. Instead, you, magical generic family guy or family gal from the vault, you get to charge into Boston, unite the people, inspire a revolution, free the cyborgs, rekindle the environment, and even build a goddamn city and govern people. How wonderful. Which brings us to Fallout 76, the end point of where this tonal shift is headed towards. I remember a very distinct questline in Fallout 3 in the town of Megaton, a ramshackle little nothing of a town, built around a live, undetonated nuclear warhead. In the quest, The Power of the Atom, which some have described as the game-defining moment in Fallout 3, you, as the lone wanderer, are presented with a choice. Do you disarm the warhead and protect the destitute hovel for no reward, or detonate it and the souls within for a wealthy entrepreneur with a truckload of caps? The decision to detonate the game's one nuclear warhead is a weighty and emotional one. Watching the bomb go off is truly one of the most sickeningly gut-wrenching moments I've ever experienced in gaming, period. In Fallout 76, on the other hand, you can drop atomic bombs on your friends for wild and hilarious results. Isn't that fun? It's clear to me that the tone and the focus of the Fallout universe is shifting, at least in my opinion. It is presenting a watered-down world that merely provides a cool backdrop for gameplay, rather than immersing itself in the true psychological horror of the post-nuclear apocalypse. While I don't believe this will make for a bad game, I do believe it will make for an ultimately weaker and consequently less interesting narrative. Other writers have expressed their thoughts regarding this possibility more eloquently than I. See Heather Alexandra of Kotaku and Austin Walker of Waypoint, respectively, so I encourage everyone to read their stuff as well. Anyway, I hope I was able to make my point here. I'm interested in hearing some other views. Regards, Nick.
All right. I will give your mouth a moment to rest. Great job reading that, by the way.
Yes.
It was almost like...
Yes, please.
It was like hearing an audiobook of his email, as voiced by Christopher Gold.
Yeah, that's how we do here. Yeah. Again, that was Nick. You can email us any questions or comments to parpodcast@gmail.com. Justin, let's dive into this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think what's so great about this email is the just emotion of it, right, from Nick. Like he's almost like I don't want to say panicking, but like deeply concerned about one of his favorite franchise of his could possibly be slowly getting morphed into something that is just too gravitas of what he wanted it to be or what he grew up loving with, Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. And Nick obviously is not the only one who feels this way, as he even stated in the email. He gave a couple links to some other people that wrote articles on it through Kotaku and other sites. Just hop on Twitter and look at people search Fallout 76, and you'll see tons of people that are either concerned or, excited for it. So it's no news, right, that someone might be feeling a little apprehensive about this new game. That being said, I kind of feel like a lot of people are jumping to conclusions a little bit too fast. I mean, the thing with Fallout 76 is, of course, it is not only a new Fallout game, but it is a new style of game, right? I mean, this is a totally multiplayer-centric game, so that's a huge deal. So when they showed it off at Bethesda's conference, of course that was their main highlight. They wanted to show you how the online works, how the multiplayer works, how many people are on a server, the things that you can do with your friends. That was like the goal of the conference. And Todd Howard, of course, did say that there will be a lot of single player focused stuff in the game. He said it's still a Fallout game. It's still very much a mainline Fallout game. There's going to be side quests. There's going to be plenty of things for you to do playing alone. And they just didn't show any of that stuff because they were just highlighting, a lot of the multiplayer things that what this game's going to be in a multiplayer sense. So I think the absence of seeing that has made a lot of people apprehensive, and it has for me as well a little bit, because this is a whole new take on the genre. Multiplayer games are obviously huge right now. Look at Fortnite, look at PUBG. A lot of the big developers are going to be going into that sort of thing and trying to capitalize on it. So I can totally see where people are getting nervous about it, but also, you have to kind of give some trust to these developers, right? Like, if you've played a Fallout 3, it's a great game. This team made a great game, Fallout New Vegas, again, like a great game, This Bethesda obviously deeply cares about this IP, and they're not going to let it run into the ground. They're not going to, take what made this so great and just kind of throw it away, So I think we need to kind of cool our jets a bit, wait for the beta to come out, which is supposedly coming soon, play that a bit, and then we can sort of kind of get a feel of what we're going to get, and start dissecting it that way. Chris, what were your initial impressions there?
Yeah, my initial impressions, I can definitely tell when reading that email, the passion and how much Nick truly cares about not just the game, but the franchise as a whole. It's clear that the message of the Fallout games. He hasn't played Fallout 1 or Fallout 2, I don't think. So his introduction, I believe, has been Fallout 3 and New Vegas. And the message of those games really has resonated with him very clearly. You can see that in his email. And I don't know. I feel like that a lot of his concerns are pretty valid from what I've been seeing and what I've heard from the Fallout series. Like, he's right. The whole idea of the Fallout games is not supposed to be, launching these nukes. Launching nukes is fun. Nuclear war is a good time. Like, this is a world that's like really decayed and destroyed because it succumbed to total nuclear war, and it's concerning to see on one hand that everything is sort of venturing towards this idea of you can just launch nukes willy-nilly at whoever you want. But then on the same token, like, there's a lot about the game that narratively suggests that it's not even so much about like, you get to launch nukes at your friends, whatever, and it's going to be a great time. Because again, at this point, we're very early into what we know about Fallout 76. I mean, the game literally has just been announced for a week. We don't know much about it. No one has played the game yet at this point. We don't even know necessarily at this point for certain that the end game is going to tell us, yes, launching nukes is fun. Maybe when you launch nukes at your friends, there's going to be horrible side effects that you weren't aware of. You thought it was going to be fun, but it turns out, oh no, it's actually horrible. Nuclear war is actually a horrible thing once you actually are behind the buttons of it. And I mean, even and just one last point. I mean, even if you go out to Fallout 3, they did have the one weapon. What was it called? I think it was the Fat Boy or something, where you could launch little mini nukes. The weapon. Now, the ammo for that was severely limited, so you couldn't just launch these little mini nukes every which way. But I remember, heck, I I poured hours and hours and hours and hours into Fallout 3, and I mean I'll admit like I kind of had fun running around with the fat man and blowing people up with the little mini nukes, but still like it didn't take away from the ultimate horror of the game and what the landscape was like. It was a hell on earth. That wasn't lost on me.
Yeah. Um, Obviously the random willy nilly nuke launching that they showed off in the E3 trailer is what kind of one of the main things people are kind of focusing on. And I I feel like you have to separate that from the single player story narrative based stuff, Like I was looking at that as yeah, it's stupid, like I don't really get it, but it's probably just some crazy thing that they added specifically for the idea of multiplayer because let's face it, people are going to love to be able to go run around, try and get these codes together to, launch the nukes, right? Like, I mean, it's got to be a fun multiplayer thing to do. Hell, honestly, like, if we were all playing together, I think we'd have a lot of fun trying to like get that together and like find those secret keys and like because apparently it's a hard thing to do and it requires a lot of teamwork. So it sounds like a fun multiplayer aspect to do. I think a lot of people are having trouble separating that from like the narrative aspect of the game. I don't really think that the random willy nilly nuke launching is going to tie into the actual story of Fallout 76 at all, I think it's just an additional thing that they added to increase the fun aspect, if you will, of the multiplayer idea of Fallout and how it's going to work, Like
Right.
again, like I'm kind of looking at Fallout 76 as like I know they did say it is a mainline game, but I'm looking at it as kind of a spin-off because the focus is so heavily on the multiplayer, that I think it's very hard to convey a story when you're not just following one character. When you're talking about millions of people that are creating their own characters and playing, you kind of have to rework how the game works, to accommodate for that, because you just have so many people that are doing their own thing. I think
Right.
that the quest lines in the story, I think they're going to be really well thought out. I think that there's going to be a lot of emotion and decision making in them, that will harken back to earlier Fallout games. And Nick's point in the email, he mentioned that he felt that Fallout 4 was taking a step back. He was concerned that the main setting of a nuclear wasteland was kind of being swept aside for like this whole action hero like aspect. And for the most part, I do agree with that statement. But I would argue that Fallout 76 might be exactly what he's looking for because the story of the game is that this is a prequel. This is when the first humans were emerging from the first vault after the nuclear war. So they're going to see for the first time like the effects of the nukes, they're going to meet like ghouls for the first time. They're going to see super mutants for the first time. All the other Fallout games, like, yeah, you as a player are seeing it for the first time, but like people have already been exposed to the world. They know what's out there. Like a lot of times you'll go to the towns that have like ghouls living in them. They already formed societies and stuff. The raiders are already out and are already a threat to people. Like the setting is already set up in those Fallout games. In this one, I feel like we're going to see, this is going to sound weird, but the setting up of the setting, if that makes any sense.
No, I get what you're saying because I was thinking that too. Narratively, it makes sense because Fallout 76 in the world of Fallout opened only 20 years after the nuclear war occurred. So I feel like it would even make sense in that narrative aspect for people to emerge from the vault and think, oh, everything, everything is cool. Nukes, like, you look around the West Virginia setting, it looks like the world right around you hasn't really been affected by nukes all that much. So it would make sense for those characters to look around and say, yeah, nuclear war, what's the big deal? Like, yeah, I don't see any bad effects here. So for them to want to launch nukes for themselves almost makes sense because those characters don't know the full ramifications of what comes from an actual nuclear war. Like, it's one thing to see it on TV, but it's another to, like, actually live it and experience it for yourself. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like it leaves a bad taste in your mouth, but from a narrative perspective, I can almost see it making sense.
Yeah. It's just, I think it's very hard to shift a single player narrative focused game into this huge world multiplayer server thing. Like they're taking on a lot here with this game. And a lot of it's a big risk. You're taking this huge franchise that's well loved. And if this thing goes terribly, like it could damage, any future Fallout game. There could be fallout from this if you want to take that horrible
yeah. Good one, Justin.
Thanks, buddy. But I do think you kind of have to try and separate a lot of these multiplayer aspects from the story. I know it's kind of hard to do. A lot of that stuff was kind of tough to watch, but I just think that things have to shift in order for this game to work the way they want it to. And I mean, who knows? No, the thing that was driving me crazy was when they showed it off at E3, everybody was going nuts, and it's like no one even played this yet. No one has seen this with their own eyes yet, and already there was people saying, "I'm not buying this game. Like this is ridiculous." There is a honest to God petition to get the game canceled that has 10,000 signatures already. Like, people, come on. What are you doing? Like, if you don't want the game, just don't play it. Like, I mean, we shouldn't be surprised because this is the climate of some people.
There's people who want to remake The Last Jedi because surely Disney is going to grant them the rights to do so. They're going to be able to hire the actors and get the script together. And, like, I think that's just a part of the culture, is people are just unhappy with different things. Now, I just want to take a step back. Like, Nick is not part of that group. Like, yeah, Nick has every right to be dissatisfied with the direction of the Fallout series as he perceives it to be.
Didn't mean to say that.
He's not one of those ones who's like, oh, they need to cancel this game and get Fallout back to its roots. I mean, he's not part of that toxic subset of fan out there. I can't even say gamer, because you look around the nerd culture landscape and it seems like everything that is popular in the realm of nerddom has a horribly toxic fan base. Like, even us, our fans are just horrible monsters. Just, they're the most terrible people you could ever imagine. But in all seriousness, though, like the fan bases out there, it's scary that the way they react. They're like, oh, this isn't my Star Wars. This isn't my Rick and Morty. This isn't my Fallout. It's like, give it a chance. I don't understand.
Take a step back, breathe, do some research. If you're interested, the company NoClip just released a half an hour long documentary just strictly about Fallout 76. And I know, so Butch, also contributor of the podcast, he is a humongous Fallout fan. He was also, like many, very upset about how they showed off the game at E3. He said he watched that documentary and a lot of his questions were answered and he feels a lot more at ease. So
yes.
I would also recommend, of course, checking that out and supporting them. Those guys do great work over at NoClip.
Oh yeah, I'm huge fans of NoClip.
Yeah. And Nick had mentioned in the email that, again, Fallout 4, he felt like the story was kind of, taking a back seat. And again, I do agree. But also, I think that the side quests of Fallout 4 were very well done, and probably the most interesting part of that game, way more so than the actual story. And if you think about it, Fallout 76 is probably just going to be nothing but side quests. I mean, I'm sure there will be some sort of like, mainline goal kind of thing that they want you to do, but a lot of how MMOs work is to complete a lot of side quests together. And you're still going to get that great writing, the interesting characters, I'm confident that will all still be there. Again, I could be wrong, we'll see. But I'm not sweating this as much as people are. Again, I'm looking at this as kind of like a Fallout spin-off more than a mainline Fallout entry as well. Because again, like the entire gameplay is shifting into multiplayer. So, there's a lot to expect. But yeah, I think we just we can't really say anything until we actually play the game.
Right. I feel like that's the ultimate lesson to take away is, we'll see how the game looks when it's actually released. When is the game slated to be released? Is it later this year or next year?
November 14th.
November 14th this year. So we'll have a better idea as we get closer to release day, and obviously once the game is actually released and we're playing it, we'll have a better idea then. But I agree with you that it's certainly too soon to tell how the game is going to turn out. But I still feel like Nick is not wrong in at least being concerned in the direction that Fallout 76 could possibly take, because it could very easily steer down one path, and I can absolutely understand where Nick and other writers, like, as he mentioned, Austin Walker and Heather Alexandra, they are concerned about that potential path that the Fallout franchise could take.
Yeah. Again, I think it is all on how you view the game, like where you rank it in, the Fallout lore or whatever, and just whether it's a mainline entry or not. And I do agree with a lot of Nick said. I think that I wasn't thrilled with the Fallout 4 mainline story at all. But, I do think that the idea of it being a prequel is a good idea for the story, of being able to emerge from the vaults and be the first people to see the world after, the nuclear fallout, and see how everything's changed, and, to watch people kind of convert, from like normal human beings to like almost their animalistic roots, and how everything turns quickly into a dog eat dog scenario. And like I think there's a lot of potential there for these like side quests of Fallout 76, of whatever narrative they want to go with this prequel. I think there's just a lot they can do with it, and they can really bring a lot of emotional, thought-provoking stories to the game. The team has been capable of doing it before. They've done it with Fallout 3. They've done it with Fallout New Vegas, and they've done it to an extent with Fallout 4 with a lot of side quests. So, I don't know. I trust them, and I am really interested to see this beta. And then go from there. So, I guess unfortunately it stinks to have to wait and see to learn more, but that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yep. Yeah, we will see. But yeah, we got a lot of good discussion out of that email. Fantastic food for thought from Nick. Really hope he writes in again very soon. He's always always has really interesting ideas and thoughts about the different games we play and the games we talk about. So, Nick, thank you so much for writing in, for giving us such a great topic to discuss this week. And yeah, we can't wait to hear from you again.
For making it a whole episode.
Yeah, we were really
it was so thought-provoking. We made it a whole episode.
Yeah, we were starved for topics this week, and thankfully Nick, he came in and really saved our asses. So thank you, Nick.
Yeah, it was a great discussion, and again, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yep. All right. What do you say we wrap this up?
Yes, I do agree.
That's good.
With that, that's all for this week. Remember, Press A repeatedly posts new episodes Tuesdays on iTunes, Google Play, Podbean, YouTube, and Spotify. If you like what you hear, please take a moment to rate and review the show, or tell your friends about us. It helps other people find the podcast and will really help us grow. And thank you to all who have rated, reviewed, and subscribed so far. We love you.
You can follow us on our Facebook page or on Twitter and Instagram. We are at Press A repeatedly. I'm at cgold113 and Justin is at oaf7724. You can email us any questions or comments at parpodcast@gmail.com. That's parpodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget, check us out on our new website at pressarepeatedly.com. That's all for this week. Chris and Justin signing off. And remember, to move the combat along so you can just attack the damn shroomers already, press A repeatedly.